Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I'm going to be giving you a few tips on how you can read more books. So I think I'm pretty safe in assuming that we all want to read more books, whether we think it's realistic or not, whether we already read 100 books a year or whether you read one book a month. The goal is always to read more books. Now, I know that I read books for the purpose of review. I read books for enjoyment. I read them to make content, and I also read them to make candles. I like to read a lot of books. I read an average of 10 books per month, which is not the biggest amount. There are definitely a lot of other booktubers out there who read a lot more than me, who have already read way over 100 books so far this year. But I think 10 books a month is pretty good. It's an average of one book every 3 days. You guys know I read a lot of big books. I read a lot of fantasy, as well as a whole range of other genres. And today I just thought that I would let you know how I accomplish that by giving you a few tips. Now, these tips are not going to work for everyone. They work for my specific schedule. Some of them are a little bit different than ones that I've heard other people recommend. So hopefully if you have watched a video similar to this before, you will still find something to take away from it. But at the end of the day, everybody is different. Everybody processes information differently. Everybody reads for different reasons. Everybody likes different books. But if you would like to maybe find out how you can maximize your reading potential, then please keep watching. So I'm just going to get straight into them. And my first tip is to get yourself some ebooks. And the reason that I say this is that I often find myself at the dentist's office, at the doctor's. Sometimes, you know, I'll have to take somebody to a hospital appointment. I may be in the supermarket with a family of 5 in front of me that have decided to just do their monthly shop, while there's an old woman in front of them counting out all the pennies from the bottom of her handbag to pay the cashier. Regardless, I may find myself in a situation where I could be for a long time and I didn't think I would need a book. So what do? I pull up an ebook on my phone. This allows me to squeeze in extra reading time wherever it is available. Having ebooks on your phone as well is super handy because you can just literally pull your phone out, open your ebook and start reading then and there. And your phone tends to be with you at all times, so ebooks are always accessible. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can make this tip work for you. One way is just to get yourself some ebooks. Now, I know there are a few services that you can sign up to that will send you an email every day or every couple of days and let you know any discounts on ebooks. You can also follow authors on Twitter and they tend to let you know if their ebooks are particularly cheap at that time. There are also services like Kindle Unlimited, which will give you access to a whole range of ebooks, and then obviously when you have them you can read them whenever you please. Now, the other way that you can utilize ebooks is the way that I utilize them, and that is to pretty much have a duplicate copy of whatever book you are reading in ebook form. Now, obviously that can get a little bit costly if you bought a physical copy of a book and then you also buy an ebook. So what I do is I have a Scribd membership. Now, this is not sponsored by Scribd in any way, and I will give you a couple of more options on how to access free ebooks, but essentially everybody talks about Scribd because of its unlimited audiobook, which is actually capped, or it was capped back when I was listening to more audiobooks. I don't use Scribd for audiobooks. I use Scribd for ebooks. I maybe listen to a maximum of 2 audiobooks a month. I read a whole ton of ebooks. If you do head into my description box, you will find my link for Scribd, and that will give you an extra month's free trial, so you'll get 2 months in total, and it will give me a free month. That's nothing special, that's just something that everybody has. But if you would like to try Scribd, the link is down there. But the other way that I access free books is that I have BorrowBox, which is similar to Libby and Overdrive, but it's the UK version, which allows me to borrow ebooks from my library. So what I will do at the start of every month is I will get my TBR and I will see if any of the books on my TBR are available on Scribd or on BorrowBox, and usually more than one is. And then I have an ebook copy of the book that I'm currently reading, so if I've left my book at home and I head out to the doctor's, I have a copy on my phone. The second tip that I have for you guys will definitely not work for everybody, but that is to have a daily page goal. As you guys know, I am a goal-oriented person. I have my Bookopoly series, which puts a lot of pressure on me to read, and I am a person who likes to make sure that I succeed. So what I do at the start of every month is I add up all of the pages in my TBR and divide that by the number of days in the month, and that gives me a daily page goal. My daily page goal for September is 98 pages per day. So as long as I read 98 pages per day, I am going to get through my Bookopoly TBR. Now, obviously this gets a little bit complicated if you stray from your TBR and add books in, but I generally just work out the maths and add those books to make sure I know what my average should be. This isn't going to work for people who don't work well under pressure. A lot of people don't want to put pressure on reading. That is okay. okay. I just find personally that to be productive in any way, shape or form, I have to either have a goal or some pressure, and I find a daily page goal super effective in keeping me accountable. This would also come in really handy if you are somebody who struggles to read every single day and you do want to incorporate reading into your daily life. Set yourself a daily page goal, maybe 50 pages per day, track it somehow and see how you go along. You will find that some days you don't read as much and some days you read more, but as long as you average out, it's okay. Tip number 3 is to have a reading nook. Now, as I've just said, I tend to read whenever I can, out and about, at the doctor's, in the supermarket, in the car, literally I will read anywhere. However, I find it hard to sit down and read at home, so I actually read a lot more pages. I'm not sure if my quality of reading is as good, but I read a lot more pages if I'm waiting for an appointment or something like that. The reason for that I have found out recently is because I do not have a dedicated space for reading. This pretty much stems from the advice that is given to people who can't sleep. If somebody can't sleep, they are often told to make sure that you only use your bedroom and your bed for sleeping, because otherwise you will start to associate that space with doing other things. So now I have started to carve out spaces for myself where I only read. I do have my phone with me because every few chapters I do like to give myself a break, because I find that if I concentrate for too long then I'm not focusing as much. So I do have my phone with me, but the spot that I choose for reading will not be a place where I can see the television. It will not be a place where I play video games, and it is not a place that I edit either. So what that does is when I get into that spot, my body knows and my brain knows that this is where we read and we are reading now, and I get a lot more quality reading done. Tip number 4 is to mix up your genres. I know there are a few people who read exclusively from one genre. There's people who only really read contemporary, people who only really read fantasy, but I do tend to read a range of genres. I predominantly read fantasy and science fiction, but I do also enjoy contemporary. I enjoy thrillers. I really enjoy contemporary graphic novels and manga. I've read a couple of children's books this year. I like reading a whole range of things. If you guys enjoy a book, or if a lot of people are enjoying a book, even if it's not my usual thing, I will tend to pick it up, because if everybody's enjoying it, then it must be a decent book. So the reason that I recommend that you mix up your genres is because as somebody who reads a lot of fantasy books can be kind of long, and when you are reading a really long or a really dense book, you don't feel like you're making a lot of progress. If it's taking you 2 weeks to finish a book just because you need a lot of time to process it, or because it's kind of dry and it needs time for the story to kick in, or just because it's a lot of pages and it takes you a lot longer to finish, which reduces your motivation, you're gonna start to feel a little bit slumpy, you're gonna feel unaccomplished, and that will make you read even slower. So what I like to do is mix up my genres. I won't read exclusively fantasy. I don't think there has ever been a month where I have exclusively read fantasy books, because I like to intersperse them. Now, I do have palette cleansers. My current palette cleanser is the Sucky Stackhouse series by Charlene Harris. These books do not have a great deal of literary merit in my opinion, but they are super fun. They are super fast paced. I can finish one of these in a couple of days and it makes me feel refreshed and ready to read again. My other recommendations would obviously be contemporary fiction, especially young adult contemporary. I tend to fly through those, and mysteries and thrillers that are super compelling I do get through really quickly as well. But essentially, don't bog yourself down in one genre. Keep it fresh and keep your brain activated, and that will keep you reading more. Tip number 5 is to read more than one book at once, and this goes hand in hand with the last tip. So as I said, if I'm reading a super long, super dense fantasy book, I'm gonna get bogged down and I'm gonna start to feel unmotivated. So I read another book alongside that as well. Now, you can designate these books however you like. I have an out and about book, which tends to be one of the books that I have in an ebook copy, and then I have my at home let's concentrate book. What I find that this does for me is it allows me to fully immerse myself in the big chunky fantasy book that I'm reading. I don't feel unmotivated because I am reading other things alongside it that are much more fast paced, and because of that I am still motivated to read the fantasy book because it isn't dragging me down or metaphorically dragging me down, and so I still manage to keep up a pretty fast reading pace. When I am reading one of the books in the A Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin, the entire time that I'm reading that book I could also read 3 other books in the time it takes me to read the George R.R. Martin book, and trust me when I say I would not read any faster if I wasn't reading other books alongside it. I need those books to keep my momentum up. Now, if we merge tips 4 and 5 together, I would say do not double up on the same genre. So if your really big book is a fantasy book, then read something completely different alongside it. 1, it will stop you from getting bogged down, and 2, you do not want to be mixing them up. I try to only keep one series of one genre genre running at once. So for example, the current adult high fantasy series I'm reading is A Song of Ice and Fire, which means that as long as I'm reading that series, I will not be picking up The Name of the Wind, I will not be reading Mistborn, I will not be reading The Wheel of Time, because that is a lot of the same genre, and not only will I get bogged down, I'll get confused and I'll start to forget things and forget what happened in which series. So I like to keep them completely separate. So if you're reading a big historical fiction, then don't pick up another historical fiction. Essentially keep them separate, but read more than one book at once. And then I do have one more tip for you, and that is tip number 6. And tip number 6 is priorities. I have given you 5 tips on how you will be able to maximize your reading potential, but as I said, I am not the quickest reader on BookTube. I don't read the most on BookTube. I have a job, I have candles, I have a YouTube channel, but these are the things that I do to maximize my reading potential and get as much read in the available time that I do have. That being said, I prioritize reading. The tips that I've shared with you are not a quick fix. If you adopt a couple of these, you're not going to be reading 50 more books a year unless you prioritize. Reading a book is reading a book. It takes a long time. Some of them take a lot more focus than others, and if you don't prioritize reading, then you're just not going to read more. Like, you have to put the effort in. While the little tips that I've shared with you may be helpful, if you're not prioritizing, then you're not going to read more books. So that is it for this quick little video. Please let me know if anything that I have said today has been particularly helpful to you, and please let me know if you have any tips to read more books, because I can always do with reading more books because there are too many books and there's too little time. Am I right? But aside from that, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you want to. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.